Hello, my beautiful souls. Today I'm sharing a story that will take you on an emotional journey of heartbreak and healing. If you've ever had your trust shattered by someone you loved, you'll feel Marisol's pain deep in your soul. But this story is also about the strength we find when we're forced to stand alone, and how sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come after our most painful endings. Grab your favorite drink, find a cozy spot, and let me know in the comments if you've ever had to rebuild your life after someone broke your heart. This story is for all of us who had to find the courage to start again when everything fell apart, and remember to kindly hit the subscribe button to join this family of love if you haven't already. The Grand Manila Hotel buzzed with activity as tech industry leaders gathered for the annual Pacific Rim Innovation Summit. Marisol Reyes moved efficiently through the chaos, her hotel manager's badge catching the light as she directed staff and soothed the egos of demanding executives. Ms. Reyes, the projector in the Sampaguita ballroom isn't working, and Mr. Mendoza's keynote starts in 20 minutes, her assistant reported, panic edging his voice. I'll handle it, Marisol assured him, already heading toward the ballroom. Gabriel Mendoza's keynote was the highlight of the conference. The reclusive tech billionaire rarely made public appearances. His company, Mendoza Innovations, had revolutionized renewable energy technology across Southeast Asia, and rumors of a groundbreaking new solar technology had the business world buzzing. In the ballroom, Marisol found technicians frantically trying to revive the dead projector. She was so focused on solving the crisis that she didn't notice the tall figure approaching until a deep voice spoke beside her. Technical difficulties. She turned to find herself looking up into warm amber eyes that crinkled at the corners. Gabriel Mendoza was taller in person than he appeared in news photos. His lean frame casually elegant in a tailored suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Mr. Mendoza, she recovered quickly, extending her hand. I'm Marisol Reyes, the hotel manager. We're resolving this issue immediately. His handshake was firm, his smile disarming. Call me Gabe, please. And don't worry. I've had presentations crash minutes before billion-dollar pitches. This is nothing. Instead of retreating to his green room as most VIPs would, he rolled up his sleeves and joined the technicians, quickly identifying a loose connection in the wiring. Marisol watched, impressed by his lack of pretension and technical knowledge. When the system finally flickered to life, he turned to her with a triumphant grin that made something flutter in her chest. Crisis averted, he said. Though I'm almost disappointed. I was enjoying the company. Their eyes held for a moment too long before Marisol remembered her professionalism. Your audience awaits, Mr. Mendoza. Gabe, he corrected again. And I hope you'll stay for the presentation, Ms. Reyes. Marisol, she found herself saying. His smile widened. Marisol, a beautiful name for a beautiful problem solver. She told herself it was professional courtesy that made her accept his dinner invitation after the conference ended. Just a hotel manager ensuring a VIP guest was satisfied with his experience. But when dinner stretched into a 3-hour conversation that flowed effortlessly from business to family to dreams they'd never shared with anyone else, Marisol knew she was in dangerous territory. My father was from Manila, but I was born and raised in California, Gabe explained over dessert. This is my first time spending more than a few days in the Philippines. I feel like I'm connecting with a part of myself I never knew. And what have you discovered? She asked. His eyes met hers. That I've been missing more than I realized. When he extended his stay at the hotel for another week, requesting Marisol as his personal guide to Manila, she should have recognized the warning signs. But there was something about Gabe Mendoza that made caution feel unnecessary. His genuine interest in her thoughts, the respectful way he listened when she spoke, how he seemed more alive exploring street markets with her than in the corporate boardrooms where he made his millions. You're different from anyone I've ever met, he told her one evening as they watched the sunset from Baywalk. Most people want something from me. You just want me. The whirlwind continued after he returned to California. Daily video calls, weekend visits where he flew her to San Francisco on his private jet, lavish gifts she initially refused until he found more meaningful ways to show his affection, like funding the education program for hotel staff she'd been trying to launch for years. 3 months after they met, During what she thought was a business dinner at Manila's most exclusive restaurant, Gabe got down on one knee. "I've built an empire, but it means nothing without someone to share it with," he said, opening a velvet box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "You've shown me what really matters, Marisol. Marry me." The proposal made headlines across Asia and America. Tech billionaire Gabriel Mendoza to wed Filipino hotel manager in fairytale romance. Their wedding 2 months later was the social event of the year, a blend of Filipino traditions and Western elegance, with celebrities and business titans flying in from around the world. Standing beside Gabe as they exchanged vows, Marisol felt like she was living a dream. The orphaned girl raised by her grandmother in Cebu had found not just success but a love so powerful it seemed to transcend the boundaries of their different worlds. "I will never let anything come between us," Gabe promised as they shared their first dance as husband and wife. She believed him with all her heart. Reality began its slow intrusion 3 weeks after the honeymoon. Gabe's company was launching a new solar technology, and 18-hour workdays became his norm. Marisol had left her hotel position to move to his penthouse in Manila's exclusive Makati district, suddenly finding herself with nothing but time while her husband was consumed by work. "Just until the launch," he'd promise, kissing her forehead distractedly before disappearing into his home office for conference calls that often lasted until dawn. When he did emerge, he was increasingly preoccupied, checking his phone constantly, snapping at small inconveniences. The warm, attentive man she'd fallen in love with seemed to be vanishing before her eyes. Then came the weekly dinners with his mother, Donna Victoria Mendoza, who had flown in from California to support Gabriel during this critical time. The elegant, cold-eyed woman made no attempt to hide her disapproval of her son's choice of wife. "Of course, we were surprised by Gabriel's impulsive decision," she told Marisol during their first meeting, examining her as one might inspect a counterfeit handbag. "The Mendoza men have always had a weakness for exotic beauty. It rarely ends well." Each dinner became an exercise in subtle humiliation, with Victoria questioning Marisol's education, her family background, her understanding of Gabriel's world. Worse, Gabe seemed blind to his mother's cruelty, often agreeing with her constructive suggestions about how Marisol might better fit into their social circle. "Mother means well," he'd say when Marisol tried to discuss it. "She just wants what's best for us." 4 months into their marriage, as Gabe grew more distant and Victoria's influence more pronounced, Marisol discovered she was pregnant. The home test showed positive, and a doctor's visit confirmed the shocking news. Twins. Despite the growing strain in their relationship, joy bubbled up inside her. Babies. 2 little lives created from their love. Surely this would bring back the Gabe she'd fallen for, remind him of what truly mattered beyond boardrooms and balance sheets. She planned a special dinner, cooking his favorite Filipino dishes herself despite the morning sickness that had plagued her for weeks. She set the table with candles, wore the dress he'd once said made her look like a goddess. Gabe arrived home 3 hours late, his face haggard, his eyes bloodshot. "I can't do this tonight, Marisol," he said, loosening his tie. "The company's facing a hostile takeover attempt. I have calls with Tokyo in an hour." "This can't wait," she insisted gently, taking his hand. "Please, just sit with me for 5 minutes." Something in her tone must have reached him. He sighed, allowing her to lead him to the table. "We're going to have a baby," she said, unable to contain her smile. "Actually, babies. It's twins, Gabe." She expected joy, shock, perhaps even happy tears. Instead, his face hardened, amber eyes turning cold as he pulled his hand from hers. "Is that why you rushed the wedding?" he asked, voice dangerously quiet. "Was this your plan all along?" The accusation hit her like a physical blow. "What? Well, I just found out myself." "Convenient timing," he said, standing abruptly. "Right when my company is vulnerable, when every financial publication is speculating about a takeover, suddenly you're pregnant with twins who'll have claim to the Mendoza fortune. How can you say that?" Tears burned her eyes. "I love you. We created these babies together." "Did we?" His laugh was harsh, Nothing like the warm sound she'd fallen in love with. "We've been careful. You told me you were on birth control. No method is 100% effective. You know that." "What I know," he said, pacing now, "is that my mother warned me this might happen. That women have tried this before with Mendoza men." "Your mother?" Understanding dawned, sickening and cold. "She's poisoned you against me from the beginning." "She's protected me," he countered. "Opened my eyes to what I was too infatuated to see." The argument escalated, months of tension erupting as Marisol defended herself against increasingly cruel accusations. When she finally broke down sobbing, cradling her still flat stomach protectively, Gabe went silent, watching her with eyes that held no warmth, no love. "I want you gone by morning," he said finally. "My lawyers will contact you about a settlement." "Gabe, please," she whispered. "These are your children. Prove it," he challenged coldly. "But do it from somewhere else. This marriage is over." The next morning, as Marisol packed the few personal belongings that truly mattered to her, a courier delivered divorce papers along with a check that felt like blood money. She left the check on the kitchen counter, tore the papers in half, and walked out of the penthouse with nothing but her pride and the twins growing inside her. As the elevator doors closed on her old life, she placed a protective hand over her stomach. "It's just us now," she whispered to her unborn children. "But I promise we'll be okay." She didn't know how she would keep that promise, but for the baby's sake, she would find a way. The ferry to Cebu rocked gently as Marisol leaned against the railing, watching Manila's skyline recede into the distance. Each nautical mile put physical space between her and the shattered pieces of her life, but the emotional wreckage traveled with her. 3 days had passed since Gabe's cruel rejection. 3 days of ignored calls from curious friends and persistent reporters hungry for details about the sudden collapse of what tabloids had dubbed Asia's fairytale romance. The headlines had already begun. Mendoza marriage implodes. Billionaire claims deception. Marisol touched her stomach gently. "We're going home," she whispered to the tiny lives inside her. "To the only person who has never let me down." Lola Esperanza's small house sat on a hill overlooking Molbol's turquoise waters, its weathered blue paint and flowering bougainvillea unchanged since Marisol's childhood. As the taxi climbed the dusty road, Marisol felt both relief and shame. At 32, she'd prided herself on her independence, on building a career that had taken her far from this simple fishing village. Now she returned with nothing but heartbreak and unborn children. The screen door creaked open before she reached the porch. Lola Esperanza stood waiting, her tiny frame straight despite her 80 years, silver hair pulled into a neat bun. One look at her granddaughter's face told her everything. "Oppo," she said simply, opening her arms. Marisol collapsed into her grandmother's embrace, finally releasing the sobs she'd been suppressing for days. Lola Esperanza held her, murmuring soft Cebuano endearments as she had when Marisol was a child frightened by storms. "I've made such a terrible mistake, Lola," Marisol whispered when she could speak again. "The only mistake is believing you must face this alone," her grandmother replied, wiping tears from Marisol's cheeks. "Come inside. You're home now." That night, as crickets chirped outside the open windows and the scent of sampaguita flowers drifted through the house, Marisol told her grandmother everything. The whirlwind romance, the lavish wedding, Gabe's transformation from attentive husband to cold stranger, and finally, his cruel rejection of her and their unborn twins. Lola Esperanza listened without interruption, her weathered hands folded in her lap. When Marisol finished, she nodded once, as if confirming something to herself. "Men like him believe money gives them the right to rewrite truth," she said finally. "But babies come from God, not from schemes. These children are blessings, not burdens." "He doesn't want them, Lola," Marisol said, fresh tears threatening. "He doesn't believe they're his. Then he has thrown away the greatest treasure life offers." Lola Esperanza took Marisol's hands in hers. "His loss will be your strength. You will raise these babies with love enough for 2 parents. How? I have no job, no money. You have family. You have community. You have the strength that runs in Reyes women's blood. Her grandmother's eyes, still sharp despite her years, held Marisol's gaze. Tomorrow we begin. Tonight you rest. Word spread quickly through the small coastal community. The prodigal daughter had returned, abandoned by her wealthy husband while carrying his children. In Manila, such gossip might have been weaponized. In Molbol, it mobilized support. Dalicé Santos, Marisol's childhood friend who now ran the popular Hanjin Beach Cafe, appeared at Lola Esperanza's door the very next morning. "I need a manager," she announced without preamble. "Someone who knows how to handle entitled tourists and keep the books straight. The pay isn't much, but there's a small apartment above the cafe you can use." Marisol recognized the offer for what it was. Not charity but dignity. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow. Today we're getting that apartment ready for you." The cafe sat directly on Panagsama Beach, its bamboo structure and open-air design making it a favorite among tourists and locals alike. The apartment above was simple but clean, with a bedroom, tiny kitchen, and a balcony overlooking the sea. By sunset, neighbors had appeared with furniture, curtains, kitchenware, and food. "I can't accept all this," Marisol protested as Tito Ramon, her grandmother's elderly neighbor, struggled up the stairs with a handmade crib. "You can and you will," he replied gruffly. "Your mother was like a daughter to me. These babies are family." As weeks passed, Marisol settled into a new rhythm. Mornings at the cafe, afternoons helping Lola Esperanza with her small herb business, evenings watching the sunset from her balcony. Her pregnancy progressed, her body changing as the twins grew. She avoided news from Manila, deleted her social media accounts, and changed her phone number. The past was behind her. Only the future mattered now. But the past wasn't finished with her. 5 months into her pregnancy, during a routine checkup at the local clinic, the doctor frowned at her blood pressure reading. "It's too high," Dr. Santos, Dalicé's cousin, explained. "And there's protein in your urine. I'm concerned about preeclampsia." "Is it dangerous?" Marisol asked, hand protectively covering her now prominent belly. "It can be, especially with twins. You need specialized care in Cebu City." The cost of such care was astronomical on her cafe manager's salary. That night, Marisol calculated her savings, considered selling the few pieces of jewelry she'd brought from Manila, and still came up devastatingly short. "God provides," Lola Esperanza said simply when Marisol confessed her fears. "Have faith." The next day, Dr. Santos called with surprising news. "Your treatments in Cebu City have been arranged. Transportation, hospital stay, specialists, everything." "How? By whom?" "Anonymous donor. Very insistent on privacy." Marisol immediately suspected Tito Ramon, who despite his modest means had connections throughout the province from his years as a respected teacher. When confronted, he neither confirmed nor denied, merely saying, "Accept the blessing, child. Pride won't help those babies." Twice weekly, Marisol made the journey to Cebu City for treatments. The specialists were the best on the island, the private hospital room more luxurious than necessary. Each time she asked about her benefactor, she received the same answer. The donor wished to remain anonymous. As her condition stabilized, Marisol focused on preparing for the twins' arrival. The cafe thrived under her management, with her hotel experience bringing new professionalism to the beachside establishment. Tourists left generous tips for the pregnant manager, who remembered their names and favorite drinks, never knowing she had once overseen staff at Manila's most prestigious hotel. In the evenings, Dalicé and other local women gathered at Lola Esperanza's house for traditional highlight massage to ease Marisol's discomfort. They brought baby clothes sewn from colorful fabrics, shared birth stories both frightening and comical, and surrounded her with a female community she'd never had in Manila's competitive corporate world. "You're not alone," Dalicé reminded her often. "These babies will have 100 aunties and uncles." For the first time since leaving Manila, Marisol began to believe everything might truly be okay. The twins had other plans. At 32 weeks, As a powerful typhoon approached the island, Marisol woke to sharp pain and wetness between her legs. Outside, palm trees bent in the strengthening wind, rain lashing against her windows. "Too early," she gasped, reaching for her phone. No signal. She managed to descend the stairs to the cafe, where she found Dalise already securing windows against the storm. "The babies," Marisol managed before another contraction doubled her over. "Coming now." Dalise's eyes widened. "Roads to Cebu City are already flooded. We need to get you to the local clinic." They made it halfway there before Marisol's water broke completely. The small clinic, when they finally reached it, was running on generator power, windows rattling as the typhoon intensified. "Preeclampsia and premature labor," Dr. Santos confirmed grimly after examining her. "Blood pressure dangerously high. We need to deliver now, but..." He glanced around the modest facility. "We're not equipped for this complexity." "No choice." Marisol gasped through another contraction. "They're coming." What followed was a blur of pain, fear, and desperate prayers. The first twin, Luzviminda, arrived relatively easily despite her tiny size. But Antonio was breech, and Marisol's blood pressure spiked dangerously as they struggled to turn him. "We're losing her," she heard someone say as darkness crept into her vision. Blood pressure crashing. The last thing Marisol remembered was Dr. Santos shouting for more blood, the wail of a newborn, and Lola Esperanza's voice cutting through the chaos. "Fight, Apo. Your babies need you. Fight." Marisol opened her eyes to unfamiliar surroundings. Not the local clinic, but a modern hospital room. Sunlight streamed through windows that revealed Cebu City's skyline. And 4 dripped into her arm, and monitors beeped steadily beside her. "Welcome back," said a gentle voice. A nurse adjusted something on one of the machines. "You gave everyone quite a scare." "My babies." Marisol's voice was a rasp. "In the NICU. Small but fighters, both of them." The nurse smiled. "The helicopter got you here just in time." "Helicopter?" Marisol frowned, confused. "What helicopter?" Before the nurse could answer, the door opened and Lola Esperanza entered. Her face lined with exhaustion but eyes bright with joy. "Praise God," she said, hurrying to Marisol's side. "The doctors weren't certain you would wake." "The twins are beautiful," her grandmother assured her. "Small as mangoes but strong as carabaos. The girl has your chin. The boy has," she hesitated, "his father's eyes." Marisol closed her eyes against fresh pain. "How did I get here?" "The storm." A medical helicopter somehow landed during a brief break in the typhoon. "Brought you and the twins directly to Cebu City's best hospital." Lola Esperanza's expression was carefully neutral. "Another miracle from our anonymous benefactor. Tito Ramon couldn't arrange that," Marisol whispered. Her grandmother simply patted her hand. "Rest now. Questions later." 3 days passed before Marisol was strong enough to visit the NICU. Wheeled to the nursery in a chair, she gasped at the sight of her twins in their incubators. So tiny, so fragile, yet undeniably perfect. Luzviminda with her delicate features and rosebud mouth. Antonio with his shock of dark hair and yes, amber eyes that were unmistakably Gabe's. "They're fighters like their mama," the NICU nurse told her. "Another week or 2, and they'll be ready to go home." The word brought both comfort and uncertainty. Her tiny apartment above the cafe wasn't ideal for premature twins. The medical bills, despite her mysterious benefactor, would eventually come due. The future stretched before her, full of challenges she'd never anticipated. But as she reached into the incubator to touch Luz's perfect tiny hand, felt those miniature fingers curl around hers with surprising strength, Marisol made a silent vow. "We survived," she whispered to her children. "And we'll keep surviving together." What she didn't know then was that someone else was making plans to ensure they did more than merely survive. "Smile, Mama." Marisol looked up from wiping down the cafe counter to find 6-month-old Luz Antonio strapped to her chest in a colorful hand-woven baby carrier, their matching faces peeking out with wide-eyed curiosity. Dallasay had snapped them into the carrier while Marisol was distracted, a common occurrence since the twins had come home from the hospital. "The tourists love seeing you with them," Dallasay explained, adjusting Tonio's tiny sun hat. "Our business has doubled since you started wearing them during shifts." "I'm not using my children as marketing props," Marisol protested, though she couldn't help smiling as Luz grabbed a strand of her hair. "They're happiest close to you anyway," Dallasay countered. "And you can work hands-free." It was true. After 3 months of juggling cafe management and newborn twins, Marisol had discovered that wearing the babies during her morning shift kept them content while allowing her to handle the books and supervise staff. The arrangement worked for everyone, especially the twins, who thrived on constant contact after their difficult start. "Fine, but only for the morning rush," Marisol conceded, kissing each tiny head before returning to her tasks. She didn't notice the young Australian couple at the corner table, the woman discreetly raising her phone to capture the scene, the beautiful Filipino with twins strapped to her chest, sunlight streaming through the open cafe walls, the turquoise ocean creating a perfect backdrop. She didn't see the woman's thumbs moving rapidly, adding filters and a caption before posting to her travel Instagram with its modest following of 3,000 people. "Most beautiful cafe manager in the Philippines with her adorable twins. Hashtag travel Philippines, hashtag Cebu life, hashtag twin babies, hashtag working mom, hashtag beach vibes." 3 days later in San Francisco, Isabela Mendoza scrolled through her Instagram feed during a mind-numbing budget meeting. At 34, she was the only female executive at Mendoza Innovations, fighting twice as hard as her brother ever had to prove her worth to the board, and to their mother, who had never believed a woman should hold real power in the family business. A sponsored post appeared, Instagram's algorithm serving her travel content based on her recent searches for a much-needed vacation. The image caught her eye. A stunning beachside cafe, a beautiful woman with twins strapped to her chest. She was about to scroll past when something made her stop, zoom in on the babies' faces. Those eyes. That dimple when the boy smiled. Isabela's heart began to race. She hadn't seen her brother in months, not since their explosive argument over his divorce and his subsequent retreat into workaholism. But she'd recognize the Mendoza eyes anywhere, that unique amber color that appeared in every generation, along with a single dimple on the right cheek when they smiled. These babies were Mendozas, which meant the woman must be Ms. Mendoza. "Your input on the Q3 projections." Isabela looked up, finding the entire boardroom staring at her. "I need to take a personal day," she said, already gathering her things. "Family emergency." 20 minutes later, she was in her office, door locked, searching frantically for more information. The Instagram post had tagged the cafe, Hanjin Beach Cafe in Molbol, Cebu. A few more searches confirmed her suspicions. The woman was Marisol Reyes, Gabriel's ex-wife, who had seemingly disappeared from Manila society after their divorce. Isabela hadn't believed the rumors about Marisol's deception from the beginning. She'd met Marisol only twice before the wedding but had been struck by her genuine warmth and obvious love for Gabriel. The sudden divorce, the accusations, the vicious PR campaign that had painted Marisol as a gold digger, it all reeked of their mother's manipulation. Now there was proof. Those twins were unmistakably Mendozas, which meant her brother had abandoned his own children. Isabela booked the next flight to Cebu. The morning rush had just ended when Marisol noticed the elegant woman sitting alone at the corner table. Something about her posture, spine straight, chin slightly raised, triggered a memory of Manila's social elite. A wealthy tourist, perhaps, though she wore no wedding ring and carried a practical backpack rather than a designer purse. "Can I get you anything else?" Marisol asked, approaching with a professional smile, the twins asleep against her chest. The woman looked up and Marisol's smile froze. Those eyes. Amber, intelligent, assessing. Mendoza eyes. "Hello, Marisol," said Isabela Mendoza softly. "I think we need to talk." Marisol's protective instincts flared. She stepped back, one hand automatically cradling the twins. "If Gabriel sent you." "He doesn't know I'm here," Isabela interrupted. He doesn't know about them at all, does he? The cafe suddenly felt too small, too exposed. Dalicé appeared at Marisol's side, sensing her distress. "Everything okay?" she asked, eyeing Isabella suspiciously. "Can you watch the twins?" Marisol asked, already unstrapping the carrier. "I need 30 minutes. Once the babies were safely with Dalicé, Marisol led Isabella to the small stretch of beach behind the cafe, away from curious ears. They walked in silence until they reached a cluster of palm trees offering shade from the midday sun. "How did you find me?" Marisol asked finally. "Instagram," Isabella replied with a small smile. "The algorithm works in mysterious ways. What do you want?" "To understand what happened." Isabella's directness was so like her brother's that it made Marisol's heart ache. "The story Gabriel tells doesn't match the woman I met before your wedding, or the mother I just saw with those babies." "The story he tells," Marisol repeated bitterly. "Let me guess, I trapped him with a pregnancy, then demanded a fortune to go away quietly." "Something like that," Isabella acknowledged. "Though recently he's stopped talking about you entirely. Just buries himself in work, avoids family gatherings, snaps at anyone who mentions your name. Guilt will do that. So will grief." Isabella studied her thoughtfully. "Those twins are his, aren't they? The eyes, the dimple. They're unmistakably Mendoza's." Marisol hesitated, then nodded. "Luz Antonio. 6 months old now. Why didn't you fight for child support? With DNA tests you could have forced a man who rejected his own children to acknowledge them." Marisol interrupted sharply. "What would that accomplish except more pain? He made his choice. I made mine." Isabella was silent for a moment, watching the waves. "I think you should know something," she said finally. "About the circumstances surrounding your divorce." "I lived those circumstances," Marisol said wearily. "I don't need a recap. You lived a carefully orchestrated deception." Isabella turned to face her directly. "Orchestrated by my mother." The revelation shouldn't have surprised Marisol, yet it hit like a physical blow. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying my mother has destroyed every relationship Gabriel has ever had that threatened her control over him. Yours just happened to be the most important." As they sat on the sand, Isabella revealed the full extent of Dona Victoria's manipulation. How she had hired private investigators not to uncover Marisol's non-existent infidelity, but to fabricate evidence of it. How she had slowly poisoned Gabriel's mind during those weekly dinners, planting seeds of doubt about Marisol's motives. How she had exploited Gabriel's deepest insecurity, that he was loved only for his wealth and position, never for himself. The company wasn't even facing a hostile takeover, Isabella explained. That was another of her fabrications, designed to put Gabriel under maximum stress just as you announced your pregnancy. "Why?" Marisol whispered, tears threatening. "Why would she do this?" "Because you were the first woman who might have taken him away from her completely." Isabella's voice held old pain. "Our father left when we were children, abandoned us for another woman. Mother has controlled Gabriel ever since, convincing him that only family, meaning her, can be trusted." "He believed her so easily," Marisol said, the old hurt surfacing. 7 months together, and he believed the worst of me without question. "She's had 35 years to perfect her manipulation of him," Isabella replied gently. "And Gabriel has always been her favorite, the son who could do no wrong, as long as he did exactly as she wished." "Does he know about what she did?" Isabella shook her head. "Not yet. I've been gathering evidence, building my case carefully. Mother is formidable. Accusing her without proof would only backfire." Marisol absorbed this, watching a fishing boat on the horizon. The pain of Gabriel's rejection had dulled over months of focusing on survival, on the twins, on rebuilding her life. But learning it had been based on lies reopened wounds she thought had healed. "Why tell me this now?" she asked finally. "Because those children deserve to know their father," Isabella said simply. And my brother deserves to know his children exist. He rejected them, Marisol reminded her. Called them liars before they were even born. Based on lies he was told, Isabella countered. Gabriel has many flaws, but abandoning his own children if he believed they were truly his? That's not who he is. Marisol wasn't so certain. The man who had cruelly dismissed her from his home seemed capable of exactly that kind of coldness. Yet she couldn't deny the twins their heritage forever. Someday they would ask about their father. What would she tell them? I'm not ready, she said finally. The twins and I have built a life here. It's simple but it's ours. I won't disrupt it for a man who couldn't trust me enough to question his mother's lies. Isabella nodded, respecting her decision. Will you at least consider something? Let me tell him about them. Not where you are, just that they exist. That he has children. And if he doesn't care, then you'll know for certain, Isabella said softly. And can move forward without doubt. Before Marisol could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Dallasay. Tonio Fussy, won't take bottle. Need you. I have to go, she said, standing quickly. The twins need me. Of course. Isabella rose as well, brushing sand from her clothes. I'm staying at the resort down the beach for 2 more days. If you change your mind about talking further. Marisol hesitated, then made a decision. Come for dinner tomorrow. At my grandmother's house. If you want to know the twins, really know them, you should see them in their home. Isabella's smile was genuine. I'd like that very much. Dinner at Lola Esperanza's house was a revelation for Isabella. The tiny home overflowed with warmth and laughter, so different from the cold formality of the Mendoza mansion. Neighbors dropped by unannounced, bringing small gifts for the twins or dishes to share. Lola Esperanza told embarrassing stories about Marisol's childhood, while Dallasay teased her about a local fisherman who left extra catches at the cafe as payment for his coffee. The twins were passed from arm to arm, adored by everyone. Tonio, serious and observant like his father, studied each new face with solemn concentration. Luz, more outgoing, charmed everyone with her ready smile and grabbing hands. They're thriving here, Isabella observed as she helped Marisol wash dishes after dinner. You've created something beautiful for them. We have very little, Marisol admitted, but they're surrounded by love. That's more than Gabriel and I had growing up in a mansion with every material advantage. Isabella handed her another plate to dry. Our mother's love always came with conditions. Later, as Marisol nursed the twins to sleep in the small bedroom that had once been hers, Isabella sat with Lola Esperanza on the porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. You paid the medical bills, Isabella said suddenly. The helicopter, the hospital. It was you, wasn't it? The old woman's face revealed nothing. What makes you think that? The specialist who treated Marisol's preeclampsia is an old family friend. When I mentioned my sister-in-law's name, he remembered the case immediately. Lola Esperanza was silent for a long moment. Some debts cannot be repaid with money, she said finally. But sometimes money can prevent greater debts from forming. You knew who she married. I read newspapers. The old woman's eyes, sharp despite her years, assessed Isabella. The question is not what I knew, but what you will do with what you now know. I'm going to tell my brother the truth, Isabella said firmly. About his mother's manipulation, about his children. And if he chooses to do nothing, then he's not the man I thought he was. Isabella's voice hardened. And I'll make sure those children never want for anything, with or without his acknowledgement. Lola Esperanza nodded, satisfied. You are different from your mother. I've spent my life trying to be, Isabella replied softly. Inside the house, unaware of their conversation, Marisol gazed down at her sleeping twins. For the first time since leaving Manila, she allowed herself to really see Gabriel in their features. Tonio's serious expression, Luz's determined chin. For months, she had focused only on survival, on moving forward. Now, with Isabella's revelations, The past had caught up to her. The truth was both simpler and more complicated than she had believed. Gabriel hadn't rejected her and the twins out of pure cruelty, but out of manipulation and lies. Did that make his failure to trust her any less painful, any more forgivable? She didn't know. But as she watched her children sleep, one thing became clear. They deserved to know the truth about their father, whatever he chose to do with the truth about them. The Mendoza Innovations headquarters dominated San Francisco's skyline, 60 floors of gleaming glass and steel that reflected the bay's waters on clear days. On the top floor, Gabriel Mendoza stared at the quarterly reports spread across his desk, the numbers blurring before his eyes. Third consecutive quarter of losses, his CFO summarized unnecessarily. The Singapore project is 6 months behind schedule. The Jakarta deal collapsed entirely. And the board is questioning your focus. Gabe rubbed his temples, fighting another migraine. Tell them I'm handling it. With all due respect, sir, they don't believe that anymore. The CFO hesitated. There's talk of a vote of no confidence at the next meeting. After the man left, Gabe swiveled his chair to face the floor-to-ceiling windows. The empire he'd built from his father's modest tech company was crumbling around him. The innovative drive that had made him a billionaire by 30 had vanished, replaced by a hollow emptiness he couldn't explain. His phone buzzed, his mother again. He silenced it without looking. Their relationship had grown increasingly strained since Marisol's departure. Victoria's constant presence, once comforting, now felt suffocating. Her subtle criticisms of his ex-wife had shifted to not-so-subtle criticisms of his leadership, his decisions, his apparent inability to move forward. The intercom buzzed. "Sir, your sister is here. She says it's urgent." Gabe sighed. "Send her in." Isabella entered like a storm front, radiating controlled energy. Unlike their last meeting, which had ended with shouting and slammed doors, today she appeared calm, determined. "You look terrible," she observed, taking the seat across from him without invitation. "Charming as always, Bella." He used her childhood nickname deliberately, hoping to diffuse whatever confrontation she had planned. "I'm in the middle of a crisis, so if this is about the Singapore project, it's about Marisol." The name hit him like a physical blow. He trained himself not to react to it, but something in Isabella's tone, a certainty, a purpose, broke through his defenses. "That's ancient history," he said, striving for indifference. 10 months is hardly ancient. Isabella placed a flash drive on his desk. "And history has a way of repeating itself when we don't learn from it." "What is this?" "The truth." She met his gaze steadily. "About why your marriage ended. About what mother did. About your children." "I don't have children," he snapped automatically. "You have twins," Isabella replied softly. "A boy and a girl. They're 7 months old now. They have your eyes." The world seemed to tilt beneath him. "That's impossible." Marisol was lying. "No, Gabriel. You were lied to." Isabella tapped the flash drive. "Everything is here. All of Mother's manipulations, the fake evidence of infidelity, the fabricated takeover threat. All of it designed to make you reject Marisol at your most vulnerable moment." "That's absurd," he said, but doubt had already taken root. "Why would Mother do that?" "For the same reason she's done it before. Control." Isabella's voice hardened. She couldn't control Marisol the way she controls everyone else in your life, including you. "Get out," he said, suddenly unable to breathe properly. "Now." Isabella stood, but instead of leaving, she leaned across the desk. "Your children are beautiful, Gabriel. They deserve a father who's brave enough to face the truth, even when it's painful." She straightened. "The question is whether you're that man." After she left, Gabe stared at the flash drive for a long time before finally plugging it into his computer. What he found shattered everything he thought he knew. 3 days later, Gabriel hadn't left his office. He'd cancelled all meetings, ignored his mother's increasingly frantic calls, and immersed himself in the evidence Isabella had collected. Email exchanges between his mother and private investigators, instructing them to fabricate evidence of Marisol's infidelity. Bank transfers to a financial analyst who created the false reports about a hostile takeover attempt. Medical records showing Marisol had been hospitalized with life-threatening complications during childbirth. Twins delivered prematurely during a typhoon. Most damning of all, surveillance photos of Marisol and the twins taken just 2 months ago. His mother had known about his children for months and said nothing. When his office door opened without a knock, he didn't need to look up to know who it was. "You're not answering my calls," Victoria Mendoza said, her voice sharp with disapproval. "The board meeting is tomorrow, and you're hiding in your office like a child." "Did they look like me?" Gabe asked quietly, still staring at his computer screen. "When you saw the photos of my children, could you tell they were Mendoza's?" The silence that followed was answer enough. When he finally looked up, his mother's face had gone carefully blank, the expression she used when strategizing. "I don't know what Isabella has told you." "Everything," he interrupted. "She told me everything. And then she showed me proof." Victoria's composure slipped for just a moment before she recovered. "Whatever you think you know, you don't understand the context. Everything I did was to protect you." "From what?" Gabe stood slowly, rage building. "From happiness. From having a family of my own. From loving someone who loved me for myself, not my money or my name." "She was a hotel manager," Victoria spat, mask falling away. "And nobody from some fishing village. She would have embarrassed us, dragged down the Mendoza name. She was carrying my children." His fist slammed onto the desk. "Children I rejected because of your lies. Children who were born during a typhoon while their mother nearly died alone." "Dramatic exaggeration," Victoria dismissed. "Besides, I made sure she had the best medical care. I'm not a monster." The casual admission stunned him. "That was you. The anonymous donor." "Of course it was me." Victoria straightened her already perfect posture. "They're Mendoza's, regardless of their mother. I take care of family. By destroying it first." Gabe laughed bitterly. "You didn't tell me they existed. For months, you've known I have children and said nothing. You weren't ready to hear it." She approached his desk, voice softening to the maternal tone that had always worked on him before. "You were still recovering from her betrayal." "Her betrayal?" Gabe's voice rose dangerously. "There was no betrayal except yours. You fabricated everything. The infidelity, the takeover threat, all of it to manipulate me into rejecting my own wife and unborn children." "I did what was necessary," Victoria insisted. "That girl would have taken you away from the family, from the company, from me. Just like your father." "This isn't about father," Gabe cut in. "It's about your pathological need to control everyone around you." "Well, it ends now." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Don't be dramatic, Gabriel. You're upset, I understand. But you have responsibilities. The board meeting tomorrow, the Singapore project." "I don't care about the board or Singapore." Gabe began gathering his things. Phone, wallet, passport. "I care about the family I threw away because I was too weak to question your lies." "Where do you think you're going?" Victoria demanded as he headed for the door. "To find my children," he answered without turning. "And their mother, if she'll even speak to me." "You can't just leave. The company is in crisis." Gabe paused at the door. "Isabella can handle the board. As of this moment, I'm appointing her acting CEO." "Isabella?" Victoria's voice rose in genuine shock. "She's not ready, she's not capable. She's twice the leader I've been these past months." He finally turned to face his mother. "And she had the courage to stand up to you, which is more than I can say for myself." Victoria's face hardened. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to walk back in. I'll make sure the board removes you permanently." For the first time in months, Gabe felt something like peace settle over him. "Do your worst, mother." I've already lost what really matters because of you. I won't lose another day with my children." The flight to Cebu was the longest 17 hours of Gabriel's life. As the private jet crossed the Pacific, he alternated between reviewing the evidence of his mother's betrayal and studying the photos of his children, Luz Vaminda and Antonio, according to their birth certificates. They had his eyes, his dimple when they smiled. But they had Marisol's gentle features, her expressive eyebrows, her resilience. Would she even see him? After what he'd done, he wouldn't blame her for slamming the door in his face. The memory of their last night together, his cruel accusations, her tears, his cold dismissal, haunted him with fresh pain now that he knew the truth. He had failed her in every way a man could fail the woman he loved. Worse, he had failed his children before they were even born. The pilot's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Beginning our descent to Cebu International Airport, sir." Gabe stared out the window at the island coming into view. Lush green mountains, white sand beaches, turquoise waters. Somewhere down there were his children. Somewhere down there was the woman he had wronged so terribly. He had no plan beyond finding them. No speech prepared, no grand gestures, no expectations. Just the desperate need to see them with his own eyes, to beg forgiveness he didn't deserve, to somehow begin to make amends for the unforgivable. As the plane touched down, his phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. "She's at Hanjin Beach Cafe in Molbol. The twins are with her. Be gentle, brother. You've hurt her enough." The taxi wound along coastal roads, past rice fields and small villages, the driver chattering about local attractions Gabriel barely heard. His mind was consumed with what lay ahead. The moment he would see Marisol again, see his children for the first time. What would he say? How could words possibly bridge the chasm his cruelty had created? "Molbol, sir," the driver announced as they entered a small coastal town bustling with tourists and locals. "Hanjin Beach Cafe is on Panagsama Beach. Very popular." Gabriel paid the driver generously, then stood on the dusty road, heart pounding. He was still wearing his business suit, absurdly formal in this beachside setting. He hadn't even packed a bag, had simply walked out of his office and onto his plane. Following signs to the beach, he passed dive shops and small restaurants until the road opened onto white sand. There, nestled among palm trees with a perfect view of the turquoise water, stood a bamboo structure with a thatched roof. A hand-painted sign swung gently in the breeze. "Hanjin Beach Cafe." And there, moving between tables with practiced grace, was Marisol. The sight of her hit him with physical force. Her hair longer now, skin sun-kissed, her movements confident as she served customers with a warm smile. She wore a simple sundress, so different from the elegant clothes she'd worn in Manila, yet somehow more beautiful for its simplicity. Strapped to her chest in a colorful carrier were two small heads, one with a tiny pink bow, one with a blue sun hat. His children. Gabriel stood frozen at the edge of the beach, unable to move forward, unable to retreat. For the first time in his life, the man who commanded boardrooms and built business empires was utterly terrified. Then, as if sensing his presence, Marisol looked up. Their eyes met across the sand, and the world seemed to stop. Recognition dawned on her face, followed by shock, then something he couldn't read. She said something to a woman beside her, who immediately took the twins from their carrier. Then Marisol straightened her shoulders and began walking toward him, her expression now carefully neutral. Gabriel found himself moving to meet her, each step bringing him closer to the reckoning he deserved. They stopped an arm's length apart, the gentle surf providing background to the most important conversation of his life. "Marisol," he began, his voice breaking on her name. "Why are you here, Gabriel?" she asked quietly. The question was simple. The answer was anything but. "I know the truth," he said finally. "About what my mother did. About the twins." He swallowed hard. "About how wrong I was." Marisol's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Pain, memory, caution. "Isabella told you. She showed me proof." His hands trembled with the need to reach for her, but he kept them at his sides. Marisol, I can't undo what I did. I can't take back the words or the pain. But I had to come. Had to see you. See them. Why now? She asked, and beneath her controlled tone, he heard the hurt of months of abandonment. It's been 7 months since they were born. 7 months of silence. I didn't know they existed until 3 days ago, he admitted. My mother. She kept it from me. But that's no excuse. I should have trusted you. I should have questioned her lies. I failed you in every way possible. Marisol studied him for a long moment, the ocean breeze lifting strands of her hair. Behind her, the cafe bustled with life. Tourists laughing, staff calling orders, music playing softly. They're napping now, she said finally. They'll wake in about an hour. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even acceptance. But it was an opening. Small, tentative, more than he deserved. Thank you, he whispered. As they turned toward the cafe, toward his children, Gabriel knew with absolute certainty that whatever happened next would define the rest of his life. Marisol led Gabriel to a small table at the edge of the cafe, far from curious eyes. Wait here, she instructed, her tone professional, as if he were any tourist. I need to check on the twins and explain this to Dalise. He watched her walk away, noting the subtle changes in her. The confident stride, the sun-kissed skin, the quiet strength that hadn't been there in Manila. This wasn't the same woman he'd married, who had moved through his world with wide-eyed wonder. This Marisol had been forged through pain and survival, pain he had caused. Dalise approached instead, setting down a glass of calamansi juice with deliberate precision. Her eyes assessed him coldly. Marisol is checking on the twins, she said, making no attempt to hide her hostility. If you upset her or those babies, you'll answer to everyone in this village. I understand, Gabriel replied quietly. No, you don't. Dalise leaned closer. You have no idea what she went through. What it took for her to rebuild after you destroyed her world. Before he could respond, she straightened and walked away, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the weight of consequences he was only beginning to comprehend. An hour passed. The cafe began to empty as the afternoon heat drove tourists back to air-conditioned resorts. Gabriel remained at his table, watching the door through which Marisol had disappeared, wondering if she had changed her mind about letting him see the twins. He wouldn't blame her if she had. Just as the sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Marisol emerged onto the cafe's back porch. In her arms were 2 small bundles, one in a yellow sundress, one in tiny blue shorts. She sat in a rocking chair facing the ocean and began to sing softly, a Cebuano lullaby his Filipino father had sometimes sung to him. Gabriel stood transfixed, unable to move, unable to breathe. His children, his son and daughter, alive and real and perfect. As if sensing his gaze, Marisol looked up. Their eyes met across the distance, and after a moment, she nodded slightly. Permission to approach. His legs felt unsteady as he crossed the cafe to the porch, each step bringing him closer to the family he had rejected. When he reached them, words failed him completely. The twins were beautiful, impossibly small yet perfectly formed, with his amber eyes and Marisol's delicate features. The girl, Luzviminda Luz, regarded him solemnly, one tiny hand clutching her mother's finger. The boy, Tonio, was more active, kicking his legs and making soft cooing sounds. This is Luz, Marisol said softly. And this is Tonio. They're perfect, Gabriel whispered, his voice breaking. Would you like to hold them? The question caught him off guard. He had expected recriminations, anger, perhaps even a refusal to let him see them at all. Not this quiet offer that felt more generous than he deserved. Can I? He asked, suddenly terrified of doing something wrong, of hurting these precious beings he had already failed so profoundly. Sit, Marisol instructed, nodding to the chair beside hers. When he was settled, she carefully placed Tonio in his arms, showing him how to support the baby's head. The weight of his son against his chest, so light yet somehow the heaviest responsibility he had ever held, broke something open inside him. "Hello, Tonio," he whispered, studying the perfect tiny face that was undeniably his own in miniature. "I'm your..." He faltered, looking up at Marisol uncertainly. "His father," she finished for him, her expression unreadable. "Whatever happened between us, that's the truth." Tonio gazed up at him with solemn amber eyes, then reached up with one tiny hand to grab Gabriel's finger. The simple gesture, this innocent trust from a child who knew nothing of betrayal or abandonment, unleashed emotions Gabriel had spent months suppressing. Tears filled his eyes, spilling over before he could stop them. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, not to Marisol but to his son. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here." Marisol watched silently, her own eyes suspiciously bright. After a moment, she shifted Luz to one arm and reached out to take Tonio back. "It's almost their feeding time," she explained. "And you look like you could use a moment." Gabriel nodded, carefully returning his son to her capable hands. He stood, moving to the porch railing to stare out at the darkening ocean, struggling to compose himself. "I have a small apartment above the cafe," Marisol said after a moment. "We can talk there after I feed them. More privacy." It was more consideration than he had shown her during their last conversation. "Thank you," he managed. "Don't thank me yet," she replied, her voice finally betraying a hint of the anger she must feel. "We have a lot to discuss, and you won't like most of it." The apartment was simple but charming. One bedroom, a tiny kitchen, a living area with windows that opened to the sea breeze. Photos of the twins covered one wall, documenting their growth from tiny preemies to chubby-cheeked infants. Gabriel studied them hungrily, trying to absorb the months he had missed. "They were so small," he said, noting the NICU images. 1.8 kilos each, Marisol confirmed, emerging from the bedroom where she had put the twins down. The doctors weren't sure Tonio would make it at first. His lungs weren't fully developed. The casual mention of their son's brush with death, a crisis Gabriel should have faced with her, hit him like a physical blow. "Marisol, I don't." She cut him off, her composure finally cracking. "Don't apologize again. Not yet. First, I need answers." She gestured for him to sit at the small kitchen table while she remained standing, arms crossed protectively over her chest. "Why did you believe her?" she asked, the question she had clearly been holding back since seeing him on the beach. "After everything we shared, everything we meant to each other, how could you believe I would deceive you that way?" It was the question he had been asking himself since discovering his mother's manipulation. The answer shamed him. "Because it confirmed my deepest fear," he admitted. "That you couldn't possibly love me for myself. That it had to be about my money, my position. I never cared about any of that." "I know." He met her gaze directly. "But I couldn't believe it. No one ever had before." "I wasn't no one," she said, hurt radiating from her. "I was your wife." "You were everything," he corrected quietly. "That's why it was so easy to believe I could lose you. That you might have an agenda I couldn't see." Marisol shook her head in disbelief. "So you decided I was lying about the pregnancy? That I deliberately got pregnant to trap you?" "My mother had been planting doubts for months," Gabriel explained, though it sounded hollow even to his own ears. "The weekly dinners, the subtle comments about your background, your ambition. By the time you told me about the pregnancy, I was primed to believe the worst. And you never once thought to ask me, to give me a chance to defend myself." "I was a coward," he admitted. "It was easier to believe her lies than to risk discovering you didn't really love me." Marisol was silent for a long moment, processing his words. Outside, the wind had picked up, palm trees swaying against a darkening sky. "There's a storm coming," she said finally, moving to close the windows. "The weather service issued a warning this morning. Typhoon season." The abrupt change of subject caught him off guard. "Should we be concerned?" It's not expected to be severe, but we should move the twins to my grandmother's house. It's on higher ground, more secure than this apartment. She glanced at him. You can come too. We can continue this conversation there. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. An acknowledgement that their conversation wasn't finished, that she was willing to hear more. Thank you, he said simply. Lola Esperanza's house was exactly as Isabella had described it. Small but sturdy, perched on a hill overlooking the village, surrounded by flowering plants that bent in the strengthening wind. The old woman herself stood in the doorway as they approached, Marisol carrying the twins in their carrier, Gabriel following with a bag of supplies. So, she said, eyeing Gabriel with sharp assessment, the father has finally appeared. Lola, Marisol warned softly. It's all right, Gabriel said. I deserve whatever judgment your grandmother has for me. Judgment is for God, Lola Esperanza replied, surprising him. I am more interested in actions than apologies. She stepped aside to let them enter. The baby's room is ready. The storm is coming faster than expected. Inside, the house was warm and inviting, filled with simple furniture and family photos. A space had been prepared for the twins, a handmade double cradle in a small room off the main living area. Marisol settled them inside, both still sleeping peacefully despite the increasing howl of the wind outside. They sleep through anything, she explained, noticing Gabriel's concerned expression. A blessing given how small this place is. As night fell, the storm intensified. Rain lashed against the windows, wind rattling the shutters. Lola Esperanza moved calmly through her preparations, lighting candles in case of power loss, checking water supplies, securing loose items outside. We've weathered worse, she assured Gabriel, noting his tension. This house has stood for 60 years. It will stand through this. They ate a simple dinner of fish sinigang and rice, the conversation carefully neutral. Weather, the twins' development, village news. Lola Esperanza dominated the discussion, allowing Marisol and Gabriel to avoid the unresolved tension between them. After dinner, as Lola retired to her room claiming fatigue, the forced civility finally broke. Why did you really come here? Marisol asked, her voice barely audible above the storm. After all this time, why now? They sat across from each other in the small living room, a kerosene lamp casting long shadows on the walls. Outside, the typhoon raged, mirroring the emotional turbulence within. Because I had to see them, Gabriel answered honestly. And you? I had to face what I'd done. And then what? She challenged. You've seen them now. What happens next? You return to your empire in San Francisco and send birthday cards once a year. The bitterness in her voice was justified, but it still cut deep. Is that what you think of me? I don't know what to think anymore, she admitted, exhaustion evident in her voice. The man I married wouldn't have abandoned his children. But he also wouldn't have accused me of lying about their paternity without a shred of evidence. I'm not that man anymore, Gabriel said quietly. I haven't been since you left. I didn't leave, she corrected sharply. You threw me out. The brutal truth hung between them, impossible to deny. Gabriel closed his eyes briefly, accepting the weight of it. You're right, he acknowledged. And there's no excuse for what I did. But I need you to understand why I was so vulnerable to my mother's manipulation. Marisol said nothing, waiting. My father abandoned us when I was 8, he began, the old pain surfacing. He left my mother for his secretary, younger, prettier, already pregnant with his child. He started a new family, had 2 more children, and never looked back. The rain drummed against the roof as he continued, revealing the childhood trauma he'd never fully shared with her during their marriage. My mother was devastated. She channeled everything into raising Isabella and me, into preserving what remained of the Mendoza name and business. She became obsessed with loyalty, with keeping the family together at all costs. So she made sure you would never trust anyone outside the family, Marisol concluded, understanding dawning. Especially not a woman. Gabriel nodded. She convinced me that everyone had an agenda, that no one could be trusted except her. When I met you," he paused, remembering. "You were different. You saw me, not my wealth or position." It terrified her, because she knew she was losing control of you. Yes, the realization that had come too late. When you told me about the pregnancy, she saw her opportunity. She knew exactly which buttons to push, which fears to exploit. "Your fear of being abandoned like your father abandoned you," Marisol said softly, her anger giving way to something more complex. "Of being used, then discarded." "It doesn't excuse what I did," Gabriel insisted. "But yes, that's why her lies worked so effectively. She knew my weaknesses because she helped create them." Marisol was silent for a long moment, processing his words. The storm seemed to be intensifying, the wind howling around the small house like a living thing. "I understand better now," she said finally. "But understanding isn't forgiveness, Gabriel. You hurt me in ways I'm not sure can be healed." "I know," he acknowledged. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. Not yet. I haven't earned it." "What are you asking for then?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility and pain. Before he could answer, a particularly violent gust rattled the windows, and from the twins' room came a startled cry. Both parents moved instinctively toward the sound, reaching the doorway at the same moment. Their hands brushed as they both reached for the light switch, the brief contact sending an electric current between them, a reminder of what had been lost, what might still remain beneath the hurt. In that moment, as they stood together in the darkness listening to their children's cries, the past and future collided with devastating clarity. Whatever happened next would change all their lives forever. The typhoon passed by morning, leaving behind fallen palm trees and flooded roads but sparing the village any major damage. Gabriel stood on Lola Esperanza's porch, surveying the aftermath while making calls to his assistant in San Francisco. "I need you to find me a rental house in Molbol," he instructed. "Something simple, walking distance to Panagsama Beach. And have my things shipped. Casual clothes, laptop, the essentials." "For how long, sir?" his assistant asked, confusion evident in her voice. Gabriel watched as Marisol emerged from the house with the twins, the morning sun illuminating their faces. "Indefinitely," he answered. "I'm staying." The decision hadn't come during some dramatic midnight epiphany. There had been no tearful reconciliation, no promises of forgiveness. Just the simple realization, as he helped Marisol soothe the twins back to sleep during the storm, that he couldn't walk away again. Not from his children, not from the chance to become the father they deserved. Marisol approached, Tonio in her arms while Luz played with her hair. "You're making arrangements to leave?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "To stay," he corrected. "I'm looking for a house nearby." Surprise flickered across her face. "What about your company? Isabella is handling things." He hesitated, then added, "I've missed 7 months of their lives already. I won't miss any more." Marisol studied him, searching for sincerity or manipulation. "The village is small, Gabriel. Everyone knows everyone's business. They know what happened between us." "You mean they know what I did to you?" he translated. "Good. Then I can start earning their forgiveness along with yours." "I haven't offered forgiveness yet," she reminded him. "I know." He met her gaze steadily. "But I'm going to work for it every day until you do. Or until you tell me definitively to stop trying." Something shifted in her expression, not softening exactly, but a subtle acknowledgement of his determination. "The twins need consistency," she said finally. "If you're going to be in their lives, it can't be halfway. No disappearing when things get difficult." "I won't disappear," he promised. "Not ever again." The small blue house Gabriel rented sat halfway between the cafe and Lola Esperanza's home. With just 2 bedrooms, a simple kitchen, and a porch overlooking a garden of native plants, it was a far cry from his San Francisco penthouse or Manila mansion. But as he arranged his minimal belongings, mostly clothes, his laptop, and a few books. It felt more like a home than any of his luxury properties ever had. His first week in Molbol established the pattern of his new life. Each morning, he arrived at the cafe just as Marisol began her shift, offering to help with the twins. Each morning, she assessed him carefully before allowing him to take them for a few hours. Walks on the beach, visits to Lola Esperanza, or simply sitting on the cafe porch where Marisol could keep an eye on them while she worked. The locals watched with undisguised suspicion. Dalicé made no attempt to hide her hostility, accidentally spilling coffee near him or serving his food cold. Tito Ramon studied him with narrowed eyes whenever he passed. Even the cafe staff treated him with cool politeness that bordered on rudeness. "They're protective of her," Lola Esperanza explained one afternoon as she watched him struggle to change Luz's diaper. "She came back broken. They helped put her together again." "I understand," Gabriel said, finally securing the diaper only to have Luz immediately roll over, threatening his handiwork. "I deserve their suspicion." "Yes, you do." The old woman's directness was refreshing after years of people telling him what he wanted to hear. "Money can't fix what you broke, you know." "I'm not trying to buy forgiveness," he assured her, though the thought had crossed his mind. Setting up trust funds, offering to pay for a new cafe building, buying Marisol a proper house. "Aren't you?" Lola Esperanza challenged. "You made 3 calls this morning about business. I heard you on the porch." Caught, Gabriel had the grace to look embarrassed. Force of habit. Habits can be broken. She took over the diapering with practiced efficiency. "These babies don't need your money, Gabriel. They need your time, your patience, your presence when they cry at 3 in the morning or fall and scrape their knees. I want to give them that," he said earnestly. "And more." "Then put the phone away," she advised. "The empire will stand without you for a while. These early days with your children won't come again." Her wisdom struck home. That evening, Gabriel called Isabella and formally appointed her CEO, not just acting head of the company. Then he turned off his phone and spent the evening helping Marisol bathe the twins, marveling at their tiny splashing hands and contagious laughter. Days turned into weeks. Gabriel established a routine that revolved entirely around the twins and, by extension, Marisol. He learned their schedule, when they napped, which foods they preferred, how Luz loved being sung to while Tonio preferred stories. He discovered that Tonio had his serious nature, studying everything with solemn concentration, while Luz had inherited Marisol's expressive eyebrows and easy smile. The village began to accept his presence grudgingly. When a storm damaged the cafe's roof, Gabriel spent 2 days working alongside local men to repair it, his designer hands blistering under unaccustomed labor. When the generator at the medical clinic failed, he not only paid for a new one but helped install it, learning from Tito Ramon's patient instruction. "You're different from what I expected," Dalicé admitted one evening, finally serving him hot coffee. "Marisol said you were kind, beneath the billionaire exterior. I didn't believe her. I lost myself for a while," Gabriel acknowledged. "I'm trying to find my way back to the man she once loved." His relationship with Marisol evolved slowly, cautiously. The raw anger of their first conversations gradually gave way to a tentative co-parenting partnership. They didn't discuss reconciliation or their feelings for each other. Instead, they focused on the twins, on establishing trust one small interaction at a time. But sometimes, when their hands brushed as they passed a baby between them, or when they shared a smile over Luz's antics, Gabriel felt the echo of what they had once shared, a connection that had been genuine before his insecurities and his mother's manipulation destroyed it. 1 month into his stay, Gabriel finally found the courage to address the business elephant in the room. Over dinner at Lola Esperanza's house, after the twins were asleep, he broached the subject carefully. "I've been thinking about the local economy here," he began. "The potential for sustainable development that preserves the natural beauty while creating opportunities." Marisol looked up from her plate, wariness in her eyes. "Gabriel, not as a way to buy favor," he clarified quickly, "but because it makes sense. This region has everything: natural resources, tourism potential, a skilled workforce. What it lacks is infrastructure and investment. The people here don't want their village turned into another overcrowded tourist trap, she pointed out. Neither do I, he agreed. But what about a tech training center? Renewable energy projects? Ecotourism that benefits local families directly? To his surprise, Marisol didn't immediately dismiss the idea. The young people here have to leave for Manila or Cebu City to find good jobs, she acknowledged. Many don't come back. They shouldn't have to choose between opportunity and home, Gabriel said, warming to the subject. Mendoza Innovations could establish a satellite office here, train local talent, create jobs that allow families to stay together. And what does Mendoza Innovations get from this arrangement? Lola Esperanza asked shrewdly. Tax benefits, positive PR, a foothold in an emerging market. Gabriel smiled slightly. And a CEO who gets to work near his children. The conversation continued late into the evening, Marisol's initial skepticism giving way to genuine engagement as they discussed possibilities. It was the first time since his arrival that they had connected intellectually, reminiscent of their early days when they would talk for hours about their dreams and ideas. As he walked back to his rental house that night, Gabriel felt a fragile hope taking root, not just for his relationship with Marisol, but for a future where he could integrate all parts of himself. Father, businessman, partner, in a way that honored what mattered most. The crisis came without warning. One morning, Tonio woke fussy and hot to the touch. By afternoon, his temperature had spiked dangerously high. His tiny body radiating heat despite cool compresses and infant fever medication. "We need to get him to a hospital," Marisol said, fear evident in her voice as she cradled their son. "The clinic here isn't equipped for this." The local doctor confirmed her fears. "His temperature is 40 degrees and rising. He needs specialized care immediately." Gabriel made one call, not to his assistant or his pilot, but to Isabella. "I need the company helicopter in Molbol as soon as possible. Medical emergency." Within an hour, the Mendoza Innovations helicopter landed on the village soccer field. Gabriel and Marisol boarded with Tonio, leaving Luz in Lola Esperanza's capable care. The flight to Manila was the longest hour of their lives. Tonio's condition deteriorated rapidly, his breathing becoming labored, his cries weakening to whimpers. Marisol held him close, whispering prayers and reassurances, while Gabriel maintained a calm exterior that belied his internal panic. At the hospital, a team of specialists was waiting. Tonio was whisked away for tests and treatment, leaving his parents in the sterile waiting room, united in their fear. "He'll be okay," Gabriel said, trying to convince himself as much as Marisol. "He's strong, like his mother." Marisol looked up at him, vulnerability replacing the careful walls she'd maintained for weeks. "What if?" "No," he interrupted gently, taking her hand. "No what ifs. He's going to be fine." She didn't pull away from his touch. Instead, her fingers tightened around his, seeking comfort she had denied herself since his return. They sat that way for hours, hands clasped, waiting for news about their son. When the doctor finally appeared, his expression was serious but not grave. "Bacterial meningitis," he explained. "We've started him on antibiotics. The next 24 hours are critical, but we caught it early. His prognosis is good." Relief made Marisol's knees buckle. Gabriel caught her, supporting her weight as the doctor continued explaining Tonio's treatment plan. They took turns sitting with their son in the pediatric ICU, one always at his bedside while the other rested or called Lola Esperanza with updates. On the second night, as Tonio's fever finally broke, Gabriel found Marisol asleep in the chair beside their son's crib, her hand reaching through the bars to touch his tiny foot. The sight crystallized everything he had come to understand over the past weeks. This woman, who had carried his children alone, given birth during a typhoon, rebuilt her life from nothing, was the strongest person he had ever known. And he loved her, not with the infatuated passion of their early days, but with a deeper, more grounded appreciation for who she truly was. Whether she could ever love him again remained uncertain. But watching her with their son, Gabriel made a silent vow to become worthy of a second chance, however long it took. 3 days later, Tonio was released from the hospital, his recovery deemed remarkable by the medical team. As they prepared to return to Molbol, Gabriel made a suggestion. "My house in Manila is sitting empty," he said carefully. "It might be more comfortable than a hotel for Tonio's follow-up appointments." Marisol hesitated, clearly uncomfortable with the idea of staying in the home from which he had once banished her. "It's not the penthouse," he clarified, reading her expression. "I sold that months ago. This is a new place in Makati. Neutral territory." To his surprise, she agreed. "Just until Tonio's follow-up next week. Then we go home to Molbol." The house was indeed new. A modern but modest 3-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, nothing like the ostentatious penthouse of their marriage. Gabriel had purchased it after selling the penthouse, though he couldn't have explained why at the time. Now, watching Marisol settle the twins in the nursery he had impulsively furnished but never expected to use, he understood his subconscious had been preparing for this moment. That evening, after the twins were asleep, they sat on the small balcony overlooking a garden filled with sampaguita flowers, Marisol's favorite. "You remembered," she said, noticing the blossoms. "I remember everything about you," he replied simply. "Even the things I was too blind to appreciate before." The honesty in his voice seemed to reach her. For the first time since his appearance in Molbol, Marisol truly looked at him, not as the man who had hurt her, but as the man who had stayed, who had changed diapers and repaired roofs and held her hand through their son's illness. "What are we doing, Gabriel?" she asked softly. "Playing house until you get bored with village life, until the novelty of fatherhood wears off. Is that what you think this is?" "I don't know what to think," she admitted. "You've been different, better. But people don't change completely." "I'm not trying to be someone else," he said. "I'm trying to be the man I always should have been. The man who deserves you and our children." Marisol was silent for a long moment, the night air fragrant with sampaguita. "And if I can't trust that man? If the damage is too deep? Then I'll keep trying," he said simply. "Every day. For as long as it takes." He reached across the space between them, palm up. An invitation, not a demand. "I love you, Marisol. Not the idea of you, not what you represent, but you, stubborn, strong, magnificent you. I don't expect you to love me back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm asking for a chance to earn your trust again. To build something real this time, with eyes wide open." Marisol looked at his outstretched hand, then up at his face. "I need conditions," she said finally. "Non-negotiable terms. Name them. Equal partnership. In everything. No more secrets, no more unilateral decisions." Her voice strengthened with each word. "The twins come first, always. Your mother has no place in our lives unless she makes genuine amends. Not just to you, but to me and the children." Gabriel nodded, accepting each condition. "And you need to heal your own wounds," she continued. "The abandonment issues, the trust problems. I can't be your emotional collateral damage anymore." "I've started therapy," he admitted. "Weekly sessions since I discovered my mother's deception. It's helping." Surprise flickered across her face, followed by something that might have been respect. Slowly, deliberately, she placed her hand in his. "I'm not promising anything," she cautioned. "But I'm willing to try. For the twins. For us. One day at a time." It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There was no passionate embrace, no dramatic declaration of undying love. Just two people who had hurt and been hurt, choosing to take a small step toward healing together. But as Gabriel's fingers closed gently around Marisol's, it felt like the most honest beginning they had ever shared. 2 years later, Hanjin Beach Cafe's newest location in Manila's Bonifacio Global City buzzed with activity as staff prepared for the special event. The space maintained the original's open-air concept and bamboo aesthetics, but with subtle urban sophistication, a successful blend of Marisol's island roots and city sensibilities. "The cake is perfect," Marisol approved, examining the confection shaped like Molbol's famous Pescador Island. "The twins will love it." "They'd better after I flew the baker in from Cebu," Gabriel teased, entering with 3-year-old Luz on his shoulders and Tonio racing ahead. "Mama, look what Lola gave us," Tonio exclaimed, proudly displaying a hand-woven bracelet of colorful threads. "It's for protection." "Protection," Gabriel corrected gently. "That's what I said," Tonio insisted with the confidence only a 3-year-old could muster. Marisol knelt to admire the gift, recognizing her grandmother's traditional craftsmanship. "Did you thank Lola Esperanza?" "With kisses," Luz announced from her perch on Gabriel's shoulders, demonstrating by smacking a loud kiss on her father's head. Gabriel's laugh, free and genuine, still caught Marisol by surprise sometimes. The transformation from the tightly controlled businessman she'd first married to this present version of him, relaxed in linen shorts and a simple button-down, comfortable with sticky toddler hands in his hair, remained remarkable. Their journey to this point hadn't been smooth. The first year of their reconciliation had included setbacks, arguments, and moments when old wounds reopened. But they had persevered, committed to the careful rebuilding of trust through therapy, honest communication, and the daily choice to move forward together. Now they balanced life between their Manila home and the beachside house in Molbol, where the twins could run free on the sand and spend precious time with Lola Esperanza. Gabriel ran Mendoza Innovations' new Sustainable Development Division remotely, focusing on eco-friendly technologies and community investment projects throughout the Philippines. The Molbol Tech Training Center he'd established now employed over 50 local residents, with graduates working remotely for companies worldwide. Marisol's cafe concept had expanded to 3 locations, each partnering with local organizations to employ single parents with flexible schedules and on-site childcare. The business model had attracted attention from social enterprise investors, but Marisol maintained majority ownership, determined to preserve the mission over maximizing profits. "Is she here yet?" Gabriel asked quietly as guests began arriving for the twins' birthday celebration. Marisol nodded toward the entrance, where an elegant older woman stood hesitantly, clutching a gift bag. "Just arrived." Victoria Mendoza had undergone her own transformation over the past 2 years. After months of refusing contact, she had finally agreed to therapy at Gabriel's insistence. The process of confronting her controlling behavior and acknowledging the damage she had caused had been painful and humbling. Her relationship with Gabriel remained fragile but healing, and her efforts to connect with Marisol and the twins had been genuine, if awkward. "Grandmother!" Tonio spotted her first, running over with characteristic enthusiasm. Victoria knelt to receive his hug, her usual perfect composure softening. Marisol watched the interaction with complicated emotions. Forgiveness hadn't come easily, but for the twins' sake and her own peace, she had chosen to allow Victoria carefully bounded access to their family. "You're glowing today," came Lola Esperanza's voice beside her. At 82, the family matriarch remained sharp-eyed and perceptive. "When will you tell him?" Marisol touched her still flat stomach, smiling. "Tonight. After the party." "Ah!" Her grandmother nodded approvingly. "A gift better than any birthday present." The room filled with friends from both worlds. Dalasay and Tito Ramon chatting with Gabriel's executive team, Isabella showing village children how to use the latest Mendoza Innovations tablet designed for educational outreach. 2 cultures, 2 families, blending into something new and stronger. As Gabriel approached with a glass of juice for her, having noticed weeks ago that she'd stopped drinking wine, Marisol felt a deep contentment settle over her. This pregnancy was nothing like her first. No fear, no uncertainty, no desperation. This child would be born into a family healed and whole, with parents who had learned the hard way that love required more than passion. It demanded courage, forgiveness, and the daily choice to trust. "Happy?" Gabriel asked softly, his free hand finding hers. Marisol looked around at the life they had rebuilt from ashes, their thriving children, their blended communities, their partnership now stronger than it had ever been in those early whirlwind days. "Yes," she answered truthfully. "Happier than I ever thought possible." As the twins blew out their birthday candles, making wishes they insisted on keeping secret, Lola Esperanza watched her family with knowing eyes. She had lived long enough to see how pain could destroy or transform, how broken things could be mended into something more beautiful for having been broken. The twins, with their Mendoza eyes and Reyes smiles, represented that transformation, the healing of wounds across generations, the breaking of destructive patterns, the triumph of love over fear. And the new life growing within Marisol promised that the healing would continue, one day, one child, one choice at a time. Hello again, my beautiful souls. What a journey we've been on with Marisol and Gabriel. Their story reminds us that sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones fighting their own demons, and that true healing requires both accountability and forgiveness. Which part of their journey touched your heart most deeply? Was it Gabriel's transformation from controlling billionaire to hands-on father? Marisol's strength in rebuilding her life? Or perhaps Lola Esperanza's wisdom guiding them all? Drop a comment below and let me know. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need a reminder that second chances are possible when both people are willing to do the work. I'll be back next week with another story that will touch your heart. Until then, remember that sometimes our deepest wounds become the doorways to our greatest healing.